Welcome back. If you've been following the reports coming out of Eastern Europe lately, well, it feels like we're watching a really rapid and, frankly, deliberate shift in how this conflict is being fought. Early October 2025 seems to have marked a sharp escalation. The focus is clearly moving away from, just the front lines and hitting civilian lives directly and hitting the infrastructure they absolutely need to survive.
Yeah, that's right.
So our mission in this deep dive is to walk you through what seems like a really frantic 48-hour period. We're working from sources detailing some major high-impact strikes. We're going to look at two main things here. First, a shocking drone attack on a passenger train. And second, what officials are already calling the largest campaign against energy infrastructure since this whole thing started. We really want to synthesize the data, understand not just what happened, but maybe why these specific targets feel like a new and maybe more brutal strategic direction, especially with winter coming.
Well, looking at these reports, what just jumps out immediately is this clear pivot towards what Ukrainian officials are flat out calling weaponizing the winter months.
Weaponizing winter.
Exactly. It's a strategy targeting the absolute basics for survival. We're talking power, transport, and critically, heat generation. The idea seems to be about inflicting maximum pressure, maybe systemic breakdown on the civilian population itself, less about costly ground advances.
That framing makes a grim kind of sense. But let's dive into just how savage some of these tactics seem to be. Okay, let's unpack this shift. We can start with the immediate, really visceral details from the sources. The Russian drone strike on Saturday, October 4th, 2025. It hit a passenger train in Ukraine's northern Sumy region. I mean, this wasn't just about disruption, was it? It feels like an assault on ordinary people just traveling.
Absolutely.
And the human cost was, well, it was devastating. Sources confirm at least one person killed, over 30 others seriously injured. And the regional prosecutors, they made a point of personalizing it. They noted the person killed was a 71-year-old man found inside a totally wrecked carriage.
Horrific detail.
Right. And when President Zelensky commented, he was blunt. He said the attackers could not have been unaware that they were striking civilians. Just couldn't have been unaware.
And focusing on the tactical side, what Ukrainian officials shared, it suggests this wasn't just one random drone. Deputy Prime Minister Alexei Kuleba alleged it was a deliberate double strike tactic.
A double strike. What does that actually mean in practice?
Well, it's about calculated lethality. The sources suggest two separate trains were hit, one right after the other. First, a commuter train, then later a Kyiv-bound service.
Okay.
That first attack, it serves a pretty grim purpose. It's essentially bait.
Bait. You mean bait for the rescuers? For medics, local officials trying to help the victims from the first hit. Is that the idea?
Precisely. The allegation is the second strike specifically targeted that concentration of people, rescuers, medical teams, people trying to evacuate who gathered after the initial hit.
Wow.
It's a tactic really designed to maximize casualties among those providing aid. It amplifies the psychological terror, and it cripples the local ability to even respond effectively.
So it goes beyond just hitting transport. It's an attack on the very ability to save lives.
Exactly. It elevates it.
That specific maneuver is horrifying. It really speaks to a heightened intent. And Oleksandr Pertsovsky is the head of Ukraine's rail operator. He described the whole thing as, quote, a vile attempt to sever communication with frontline communities.
Severing lifelines.
So not just terror, but strategic sabotage, too. And the immediate impact, it was documented. Power got knocked out in Shaska. That's a city of about 70,000 people, right near the Russian border. The sources clearly link that rail strike to disrupting operations in a key logistics area.
And that connection, terror and logistics, that's key. To sum up President Zelensky's reaction from the sources, he didn't hold back at all. He called it savage, an act of terrorism.
Yeah, strong words.
Very. And he made a direct appeal to the international community, basically saying, don't ignore these deliberate strikes on civilians. He emphasized that violence aimed purely at essential civilian infrastructure needs, well, global recognition for what it is, an attack on the will and safety of the population.
And this really focused attack on the trains, it wasn't alone, was it? The sources show it came right after or alongside an even bigger, more systematic assault on the energy system just the day before.
That's right. It was a 1-2 punch.
The scale of that energy attack is what really stands out when you look at the numbers. Ukraine's Air Force reported that on Friday, Russia launched, you get this, a total of 381 drones and 35 missiles.
381 drones.
Yeah. For anyone tracking this conflict, that's an extraordinary amount of incoming fire aimed across the country in just one 24-hour period.
That number, 381 drones, is just a massive quantitative data point. Maybe not the absolute single-day record, but it's definitely one of the biggest surges we've seen since the conflict began. It puts enormous strain on Ukrainian air defenses across multiple regions at once.
Right.
And the targets really confirm the strategic thinking behind it. NotebookLM, that's the state-owned energy company, they reported this was actually Russia's largest attack to date, specifically hitting natural gas facilities.
Okay, hold on. Why the focus on natural gas? We've seen electricity substations hit plenty of times before. What's the significance when the focus shifts so heavily to gas infrastructure?
Well, that's where that weaponizing winter strategy gets tactical. See, hitting electrical substations disrupts power, maybe local lights, some heating, sure. But crippling natural gas facilities, that hits the core ability for centralized heating systems across major cities.
Okay, I see. Central heating.
Exactly. Naftogaz confirmed these strikes caused critical damage in both Kharkiv and Poltava regions. Both are crucial for domestic gas supply and distribution. If those networks are badly damaged now, the chance of restoring heat for apartment buildings, for hospitals, when temperatures really drop below freezing, well, it becomes almost zero.
This sounds much more focused on basic survival than just, battlefield attrition. What are Ukrainian officials saying is the strategic reason for this timing? Why now?
They see this intense focus of fire as a calculated, preemptive move designed to cripple the energy grid before the really deep winter months hit.
Makes sense.
The intent, as they read it, seems to be twofold. First, weaken public morale, guarantee a cold, dark winter for millions, and second, maybe force people to move, internal displacement.
And we saw immediate effects, right?
We did. Specific collateral damage illustrates the link perfectly. Sources mention around 50,000 households in the Chernihiv region were left completely without power right after these strikes. It just shows that immediate, deep connection between these military actions and real civilian hardship.
So if you look at it together, hitting the rail network, disrupting logistics, creating terror, and then hitting the gas infrastructure, basically guaranteeing cold months. It absolutely lines up with Zelensky's assessment, doesn't it? A broader, synchronized strategy to weaponize the winter months.
It really does.
It's like trying to turn the climate itself against the civilian population.
It's a clear escalation moving into economic and infrastructural warfare. The aim seems to be breaking down social services. Historically, that kind of pressure can sometimes achieve strategic goals faster than just slow military gains on the ground.
Yeah.
It brings that environmental severity right into the conflict equation.
Okay, but we have to pivot now, because our sources mention a counter-response. This escalation isn't just one-way traffic. The action-reaction cycle is still incredibly volatile. Ukraine claimed responsibility for hitting a really significant target inside Russia, the Kyiv refinery near St. Petersburg.
A major one.
For those of us tracking the economic side of this,
Yeah.
what does hitting a place like Kyiv actually do to Russia's, financial engine? How important is it?
Oh, Kyiv is hugely important. It's one of Russia's largest oil processing plants, run by Sergei, a major player.
Right.
It processes a massive amount of crude oil, something like 355,000 barrels a day. To give you some context, that's a really substantial chunk of Russia's total domestic fuel refining capacity.
Wow.
So hitting a facility that big, especially one supplying domestic gasoline, possibly jet fuel, it directly impacts Russia's ability to keep its own economy running smoothly and, crucially, to fund its military through oil and gas revenues.
Okay, and what did the Russians say? Do they confirm the strike? Because hitting a refinery that big, that close to St. Petersburg, that's a sensitive area, geographically significant, must have been a big deal for their defenses.
Well, the local governor, Alexander Drozdenko, he did confirm an attack. He stated 7 drones were intercepted overnight, and yes, a fire broke out in an industrial zone but was put out. But, as is often the case in these situations, the official Russian reports were pretty vague about the actual extent of damage to the refining capability itself.
Right, keep it vague.
Exactly. But even the fact that they intercepted drones there highlights the significance. Targeting infrastructure that deep inside Russia, so close to major political and naval centers like St. Petersburg, it forces Russia to pull scarce air defense systems away from the front lines. That has an impact, too.
Okay, and if we connect this back to the bigger picture, this whole exchange of long-range strikes, the attacks on Ukrainian energy, Ukraine's retaliatory strike on Kyiv, This is all happening right after a really explicit warning, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly. It sits directly under a geopolitical warning issued just earlier that week. President Putin had cautioned, specifically on Thursday, about potential U.S. deliveries of long-range Tomahawk missiles to Kyiv.
And what did he say would happen?
He stated very clearly that such a move would trigger, quote, a new stage of escalation.
So the warning is given, and then in the next 48 hours, we see exactly this. Targeting civilian trains, massive energy facilities, a major Russian refinery. It feels like the conflict is escalating right under that explicit threat.
It certainly looks that way.
Both sides are hitting these high-value, high-consequence infrastructure targets. It just raises the risk ceiling, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And pushes the conflict into a space where the economic and civilian cost is maximized.
Yeah, the source material makes it pretty clear we're not just talking about localized skirmishes anymore. We seem to be watching a deliberate, synchronized strategic campaign, one designed to achieve a kind of non-military systemic collapse in the opponent's rear areas.
So if we pull all these sources together, the main takeaway seems to be this confirmation of a deliberate, synchronized shift in strategy from both sides.
Yeah.
We're seeing this clear escalation in using long-range strikes against vital systems, rail, gas, major oil plants. And the result is a direct and tragic impact on civilians. They seem to be the primary victims here.
And that raises a really important question, doesn't it? It goes beyond just the immediate damage reports, more into strategic effectiveness. When you consider the sources keep highlighting the timing hitting the grid and transport before winter, and the goals crippling morale, communication, well, what are the ultimate limits of this kind of escalation? Does targeting critical infrastructure actually give you a real military advantage in the end? Or does it just normalize a higher, much more destructive level of conflict for everyone involved? It's a tough question.
Yeah, it really is. And thinking about those specific details we discussed, the train attack, the energy grid hits, that claimed strike on the huge Kyiv refinery, how effective will this strategy of hitting economic and civilian infrastructure actually be? Will it change dynamics on the military front line? Or does it just increase that level of savage terror President Zelensky talked about?
A crucial question.
And maybe more fundamentally, how much longer can these societies even sustain this kind of tit-for-tat infrastructural warfare before total systemic collapse just becomes the defining feature of the whole conflict? Something for you to definitely mull over as we watch this conflict head into the hard realities of the colder months ahead.